Specific effects are so unbelievable no one with sense would ever believe it happened. But the events in today's video have been captured on film. Here are 15 events you wouldn't think of if not filmed. Number 15. Low-flying plane. In January 2019, residents of Nashville, Tennessee, were stunned to see a military plane flying extremely close to the ground, so much so that it seemed to skim across the tops of buildings and pass my office windows. It kept circling for half an hour, and during that time, startled witnesses made hundreds of calls to local authorities in a panic about what was happening. Later it transpired that this was all part of a training exercise in preparation for a flyover to celebrate the new governor's inauguration. However, with no prior warning and a seemingly reckless flight path, people were not amused but still incredible to see the precise control from the pilot. It showed how maneuverable these jets are. Unfortunately, in the end, the actual celebration flight was cancelled because of poor weather conditions, so the rehearsal and the fear caused were all in vain news. Number 14. Sinkhole opening in a road. The ground surface may look stable, but things could be very different. In some regions, water is slowly eroding the underlying rock layers. Once enough is gone that it can't support what's above it, the ground will collapse, and a sinkhole will be formed. Luckily, this usually happens in remote areas. Still, sometimes it can occur without warning in the middle of a built-up area. This clip from Russia shows how extreme these events can be, as you wouldn't usually think twice about the danger of a sinkhole when driving on a tarmac road. Suddenly, the ground opens up beneath the concrete mixer and almost swallows it. Full authorities said this was the result of a small sinkhole. The consequences could have been more catastrophic if it had been any more significant. Number 13. Lightning versus a tree. You've heard the saying lightning never strikes twice, but in most cases, it must strike once to cause untold damage. This video was recorded at Bryson Lake Lodge in Quebec, Canada, where guests were advised to stay inside because of an approaching storm. They set up a camera to record it passing over, but no one could have predicted what would happen next. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning strikes the pine tree in the courtyard. Shards of wood and debris are sent flying, and the tree's canopy collapses on top of one of the buildings, damaging the roof. Luckily, no one was hurt, but it could have been very different had they not been hiding in the safety of their rooms. Number 12. Surfing with a shark. There's a reason why surfing is such a popular sport worldwide. There's nothing quite like feeling the wind blow through your hair as you carve a giant wave that begins to break. Still, sometimes it can become far more extreme than any surfer would want it to. During the 2015 World Surf League Championships, pro surfer Mick Fanning was in the water of Jeffreys Bay in South Africa. When he felt something tugging at his board, it soon became apparent that a shark was attacking him, and his survival instincts kicked in. You can see the shark's fin and tail thrashing about in the water as he fought it off. When he got an opportunity, he started swimming back toward the race officials, who were speeding to his rescue. Amazingly, just 2 years later, he was competing at the same event, and the same thing happened to him again. And after this second experience, he finally decided it was time to retire. Number 11. Makeup during an earthquake. Makeup tutorials have become one of the most popular types of online content, and while you may think you've seen all you can from these videos, there's always a surprise waiting in store. This one by Ali J was recorded on July 8, 2019, unbeknownst to her, and she was about to be filming live when one of the strongest earthquakes of the year struck. It begins like any other, just as she begins to a higher lipstick. The room starts to shake someone violently. Predictably, her application doesn't go exactly to plan during the event, and you can see the terror on her face as it dawns on her what's happening. Luckily, the tremor is over in a few seconds, and she's perfectly safe. But the chances of this happening are so remote you'd never believe it if the camera hadn't been ruined. Number 10. Multiplying fighter jet. Ryan Melville is a pilot for the Australian Air Force who is used to pushing jets to their limits. He often performs acrobatic displays for spectators, and in 2017 he was brought in to put on a thrilling show in front of the supportive crowds of the Gold Coast 600. It's an annual car race that follows a route around a temporary street circuit in Queensland, Australia. Still, instead of navigating the course by car, he did it in a Hop 127. The cockpit video shows the jet weaving and turning along the coast and close to the buildings in what must have been an exhilarating ride for the 2 crew members on board. It's insane to see them flying so low and close to a built-up area, and it is scarce to see someone attempting to do this anywhere in the world. Number 9. Burj Khalifa base jump. Dubai's Burj Khalifa is the world's tallest building, reaching 2,717 feet above the ground, but not content with holding in this record, the owners regularly put on spectacular events to ensure everyone continues watching what they were doing in 2014. This was taken to a new level of an extreme win in association with the local skydiving association. They arranged for 2 base jumpers to leap from the top. It's unbelievable to see them flying toward the ground in their wingsuits with the backdrop of the desert city behind them. They circled the enormous building with red smoke trailing in their wake. Unsurprisingly, in the process, they set a world record for the highest base jump ever to be completed, as well as being in contention for being either the bravest or the most insane people on Earth, depending on how you see it. Asked about the event afterward, one of the jumpers said that people often think of base jumpers as being crazy. Still, all they ever want to do is fly before we move on. Be sure to subscribe to Amazing World with notifications on. Number 8. Helicopter stunts. The Bo 105 was a German anti-tank helicopter first brought into service in 1970. The agility required to take on enemy artillery made the design ideal for aerobatic maneuvers. It was the first design of a copter to have light twin engines and was one of the first to have a hingeless rotor system. These, along with a responsive control system, allow pilots to move with a rare level of precision. When it's inexperienced and fearless hands, it's a joy to watch. Charlie Zimmerman is well known for his insane stunts in one of those choppers. You'd never believe some of the moves he pulls off without seeing them for yourself. He performs inverted loops, flies at insanely low altitudes, and nimbly darts around trees and other obstacles as if the helicopter controls are an extension of himself. This takes such skill and precision. Still, there are very few people that have either the ability or the confidence to do so. Number 7. Antares rocket explosion. Even though space agencies worldwide have been sending rockets into space since the 1950s, there's still nothing quite like witnessing a launch for yourself, and they continue to draw large crowds every time. Occasionally, things go only partially to plan. When I'm in the 5th month of the Antares rocket, on the 28th of October 2014, things went catastrophically wrong. The uncrewed vehicle was making a scheduled launch from the launch pad May at Wallops Island, Virginia, to deliver supplies to the International Space Station, and at first, the launch appeared to have gone without a hitch soon after takeoff. However, there was a failure in the propulsion system of the first stage, and the rocket began falling back to the ground. The shockwave from the resulting explosion was felt 20 miles away. The fire raged all night before finally being extinguished the next day. Fortunately, no one was injured in the accident, but the payload worth tens of millions of dollars was destroyed. Number 6. Biking through New York City. The roads through busy cities are usually so packed with vehicles that it takes ages to get from one place to another. This can be different if you're on a bike and luck goes your way. This video shows a biker doing something wholly reckless, and it's something that you must not consider doing yourself. But it's a view of New York that very few people will ever experience. Beginning in Manhattan, he races through the streets towards Brooklyn and doesn't let up his speed except for when the roads become too congested for there to be any route through. He twists and weaves past pedestrians, other vehicles, and flocks of birds. The number of near misses is insane. Every time it seems like space is closing off, he somehow manages to find a way through. For most of the 16-minute journey, he doesn't hold off on the throttle. Miraculously, he works to get through without incident, making you wonder how ordinary people attempt to do something like this. Number 5. Cricket ball hits a flying fox. Cricket is one of the most popular sports in the world, and at significant events, tens of thousands of spectators will be like in other high-profile contests. There's also a huge TV audience, and broadcasters try to keep on the cutting edge of technology to provide the viewers with the best angles they possibly can. In recent years, this has included a spider cam system that suspends a camera over the field of play with a series of motorized winches in Australia. It's affectionately known as the Flying Fox, and while it's usually well out of the way of the game that it was filming in 2018, it became the center of the action. The Gabba is one of Australia's most extensive cricket grounds, and it was hosting a T20 match against India. Glenn Maxwell was at the stumps preparing for the next ball. He managed to strike it with such force that he lost control over its direction when it was bowling. It flung skyward. Stadium cameras tried to focus on the ball and its trajectory. Still, suddenly it disappeared from the sky. It managed to collide with the small camera that suspended the wicket and crashed straight back down to the ground, to the delight of the commentators and fans alike. For the players. Number 4. Dam collapse. Dams are built worldwide for various reasons and are usually designed to hold water back. Some contain waste material from construction works. Brazil's Brumadinho tiling dam was one of several in the country that was next to an iron ore mine and used to store byproducts from the process of separating the valuable ore from the worthless material that contains it. In 2015, there was a disaster at a nearby dam that buckled under the pressure it was under, but in the wake of that event, no safety precautions were taken to prevent anything like it from happening again. On January 25, 2019, the Brumadinho Dam collapsed, and the resultant mud and debris flow were catastrophic just after midday. The structural integrity failed. There was nothing to hold back the 423 million cubic feet of material. It flowed straight into the nearby offices of the mine, and countless homes, farms, and other buildings residents had no chance of getting out of the way in time. Sadly, 270 perished in the tragedy. There was a loss of human life, and the environmental impact was huge, too. Number 3. Iceberg Calving. If you spend enough time watching the side of an ice sheet, you witness the incredible sight of an iceberg calving into the ocean in 2008 while in a remote region of Greenland. 2 cameras captured the largest calving event ever to be recorded on film. It happened on the edge of the Illuminate Glacier, which is responsible for producing 10% of the icebergs formed around Greenland. It's estimated from this glacier alone that more than 35 billion tons of ice are released into the sea yearly. It's a relatively fast-moving glacier reaching speeds of up to 150 feet per day, but what happened that day when they were filming was unusual even for such an active region. They had only just set up the equipment when part of the edge of the glacier began to collapse. Things only escalated as the tremors reverberated through the ice more and more, became dislodged, and began to fall. Vast pieces of ice started to break up and fall into the water, causing massive waves to ripple out. It's tough to imagine the size of what happened in the video. Still, to put it into perspective, the total amount of ice that broke free during this event was about the equivalent of the size of the lower part of Manhattan Island. Still, at a height many times higher than the tallest skyscrapers in the city, it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing to witness and clearly show the majestic beauty and power of these ice formations. Number 2. Lion saves wildebeest. Lions are known to be the African savanna's dominant predators but aren't always so ruthless or focused on hunting. Sometimes they show compassion towards other animals, especially if it means they can deprive others of a meal. They may one day need to rely on themselves, and this footage shows a young wildebeest that has been separated from its family, and a group of hyenas has begun to move in for the kill. The panicking animal starts to run around in circles, not knowing what to do, and the hyenas move in closer. They begin to attack, but the wildebeest still has got some fight in it yet, so what manages to evade their attempts, they continue to lay chase. However, knowing that the wildebeest will soon tire out and they'll be able to get their meal just as you think there's no hope for the prey, a lion appears and comes to the rescue. The hyenas stop to wait and see what's going to happen. Still, the lion goes for them instead of attacking the vulnerable foal. Instead, it rolls around on the floor and completely dominates the lead hyena, who has no choice but to back off and track down a different victim. If that wasn't amazing enough, the next moment is genuinely unbelievable. Later, when the lion is relaxing in the shade, the wildebeest is seen snuggling up against it, and instead of attacking it as you might expect, the lion sits there as if the young animal was one of its own. Number 1. Tightrope Competition. Tightrope walking is often seen as a form of entertainment at circuses or stage shows, but in China, regular competitions allow practitioners to show off their talents. In this one in the Hunan province, the almost 3,000-foot-long wire has been suspended 100 feet above the lake with the water below. There's no safety net nor guide ropes to help each competitor across. Instead, they rely entirely on their steady feet, and the balancing pole part of the contest involves timing them to see who's the fastest across rather than walking. Some of them managed to virtually run the entire length, moving at such speed that notably meant some people fell, and the way they handled mistakes was part of the event's fun. One of the first competitors in this particular competition managed to land with a leg on either side of the wire and could stand back up and complete the challenge, but only some were so lucky. Quite a few fell off with no chance of recovery, and even though they were falling into water from such a height that would have been a painful collision with the surface. Thanks for watching, and subscribe to Amazing World for more.